Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Stewart Kraintz. We have an awesome guest for you this week. She has been on the show a few times before, and we wanted to have her back for a third appearance because, not going to lie, every time she makes an appearance on the show, not only does she impart her wisdom on you all as the listeners, but you guys seem to not be able to get enough either. So she is not only our most featured guest, but our most listened to guest as well. I want to give it up for my wife. She is a women's empowerment coach and all around badass, Jennifer Johnson. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel like that introduction was the best one yet. So you just set the bar.
Yeah, maybe I should start introducing you like that at parties and cocktail hours
Everywhere
and
we
stuff like
go.
that.
Everywhere we go.
So I wanted to have you on the show because a lot has changed. I believe you
Mhm.
were episode number 7, which is this show's all-time listen to episode. Listeners can definitely go back and catch that on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And also on episode 22. A lot has changed in almost a year since you've been on. And so I would love for you to actually reflect on how you yourself have grown in the last year or so.
Oh my goodness. We only have 45 minutes. I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest area where I've seen growth in myself is getting really clear on what matters to me. And if it's not in direct contribution to one of those things that really matters to me, then I'm a no to it.
Mm.
And so my time and my energy has been really focused on the things that really matter to me. So those areas have grown significantly. And because I'm so laser focused, there's other areas of my life where I notice that I'm growing in general or I'm leveling up. It's my next cut in that area.
So I know it's often said how you do one thing is how you do everything. Can you elaborate on that in terms of what I'm hearing you say is setting boundaries in terms of what's actually aligned to you and what you actually want to put your energy and resources towards? Can you explain how those two things interweave with each other for the audience?
Sure. I think the big thing around the boundaries is there are lots of amazing things out there in this world that I could jump into and support, or, whether it's my time or my, donations, like monetary or tangible items, or, you know, really sending my energy. And I could, and it left me feeling completely maxed out. And it
Mm.
left me feeling resentful. And split focus equals split results. And I noticed how my lack of boundaries in my life and just being a yes to everything because I cared. It's not coming from a victim space. It's not, or a martyr space, quite frankly, but it's because I care. I care so much. And so being a yes to so much took my focus away from so much or divided my attention. So I really started seeing it in my schoolwork, in my home life, in the attention that I was giving my son, in my business. All of those areas weren't getting the attention that it deserved and that I wanted to give it because I was just so maxed out in so many areas. My friendships, that's another really big one. Just noticing how I was showing up as a friend when I didn't have anything left to give.
Mhm.
And so being really clear on what I'm a yes to, what matters to me, and I wouldn't even say saying no to everything else, although I'm saying no to a lot, but if I'm saying yes to it, I'm having really firm boundaries around it. And it's been keeping me in a space where I can continue to give my time and energy to things that I really love and things that really matter to me. But the bulk of my time and energy has gone towards the things that really matter to me. And that's my relationships, that's my family, that's my business. And I'm watching those areas really bloom. Some areas are like blooming beautifully, and some areas are just exploding in a really big and powerful way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Something that comes to mind for me, I am a self professed recovering people pleaser. It is
Yeah.
something that I am always working on because I grew up really, really caring about what other people thought of me, whether or not I was going to receive love from them, depending on whether or not I said yes or no to whatever their requests were of me. And so it sounds like you're seeing yourself thrive by being calculated in what you say yes and no to. How would you explain this to someone who is still feeling that fear of like, "Oh, what do I do if I don't say yes to this person?" Or, "Oh, what do I do if I'm committed to this thing already and I don't feel like I can quit?"
I think the big thing for me has been, and there's a couple areas that I want to go with this, but the big thing for me has been not saying yes right away.
Mm,
So I'm like a total extrovert. I love people. I love being with people. I love being, you know, I love making plans to be out and about with people that I love in spaces that I love. And it causes me, because of that, I say yes to things because in that moment it sounds really exciting. But when I really pull back and look at the big picture or notice how this actually fits into my life, it just doesn't work. And so what really has worked for me, and shout out to Oprah because this is who I heard it from, was pausing before I say yes to anything. So saying, I want to think about that. So I would like to get back with you on Monday by 12 o'clock, or, tomorrow by 6 p.m., whatever it is, like giving myself a time frame. And so that I'm being accountable to it too. And also so that they know if I don't get back to them for whatever the reason, because also life happens, they know they can follow up with me. So I'm saying yes from a space of vision, from a space of what's really important to me, and not just because I'm excited and caught up in the moment.
mm,
And I mean, there's so many places in my life where I've said yes to something because I was caught up in the moment, and I'm going to bring this one up and you'll laugh at it. Our son wanted to support the kids ministry at our church. So he wanted to essentially be a Sunday school teacher. And so I just was a yes to him doing that. And because of his age, we got to support alongside him because he's not quite old enough. And so without really even thinking about it, we signed up for it. And it's been a challenge. We made that decision very quickly and very abruptly. And then there we were in a 6-month commitment where people were depending on us. And I've been the person that's shown up to bring my kid to childcare. And because there weren't enough volunteers, they had to close classrooms down and my kid couldn't go. And so I always want somebody to have that support with their kiddo. So that's why I'm choosing into it. But the reality is, our weekends are the busiest time of our week. And so having that commitment has been a real struggle for us. And I wish I would have thought about it and really sat down and considered the impact that this was going to have on our lives. Now, with that being said, I did make a commitment and I did say yes. And so, we're choosing to honor that commitment. And it's just driving that lesson home to stop and think and reflect before committing to something. There have been other times where I've committed to something and then I've had to choose out afterwards, after I made that commitment. And I don't want to be out of integrity with any one person or any organization, a company, a person, whomever. I don't ever want to be out of integrity. But for me, what I know to be true is generally, if I feel it in my heart, then it's like it's a yes for me. But if I'm really toying with it in my brain, if I'm really trying to make ways to justify it, or to justify my yes, or also to justify my no, if I'm in that internal conflict, then it's likely a no for me. And there's a reason. And the reasons could range from a variety of things. Perhaps I'm not aligned with, the organization. Perhaps I don't share a same vision or core beliefs or values. There's several reasons. And so I really am I trust my body, what it's telling me about my commitments. And although I don't want to be out of integrity, it's also okay to change my mind. And so when I do, I handle it responsibly, and I own it. And I acknowledge the breakdown and the commitment that I made to them, and let them know I can no longer honor that commitment. And I think that the big thing is just being an ownership around it versus being a victim to it. Like, it's okay to change your mind. Just own that you changed your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that you're talking about big things like commitments to, in this case, serve in church or to
Mhm.
organizations or anything else that we're up to, but y'all, this is even applicable just to you made some plans for Friday night when you were excited about them, and now that it's
Yes.
Friday at 3 p.m., you're not feeling it.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, that was just me this week. It wasn't about that I didn't want to see the person. It was that it was Friday and I was really feeling my week. And my energy was low and I was really tired. And I also just checked in with myself, like, is this really because I don't want to go, or in this moment am I just feeling low energy? And so, like, really trusting my body and putting myself into action, and I had a phenomenal time, and I'm so glad that I didn't cancel plans. And with that being said, we have a duty to ourselves to honor our energy and honor our time, and if that means that we get to cancel our plans, then we get to do that, and it comes from a space of ownership. My invitation is, do not lie. Do not say you're
Yes.
sick. Do not say something popped up. Just say, I'm really tired today. I'm really struggling with my energy today. I've had a lot of big emotions today. I'm experiencing a lot right now because there's a planet in retrograde or something. I don't know. Just be open about what it is. And I don't want to sound preachy. This is what works for me. It's just to be open and transparent and in ownership of what's coming up versus a victim making excuses or even lies to it. And just honor yourself by doing that.
Y'all, what Jen is saying is going back to the integrity piece of it, do not lie. Like, just
Mhm.
be honest, own it. Like, remaining in integrity is being honest and forthright and truthful. And, again, when we lie, we're actually giving a little bit of our personal power away because we're so concerned about how we're going to be viewed by that person that we're lying to,
Mm,
that we're actually choosing to be out of integrity in that moment. And
mm,
so you can exhibit a high level of self-worth and self-care, which is what this conversation's about, but lying is actually just compounding the problem that you're creating.
mhm,
And Jen, I wanted to go back to something since we're talking a lot about self-care here.
mhm,
One of the things that I want the listeners to hear is that nobody can take care of us better than we can take care of
mhm,
ourselves.
mhm,
So that's why being true to ourselves, honoring our own boundaries, yes, honoring our commitments insofar as they make sense, like we get to follow through and be leaders about it. But how is all of what we're talking about tied to someone's self-worth?
I mean, I think that there's multiple ways. I think the biggest thing is when you choose to be out of integrity in whatever the area is, there is a underlying worthiness conversation. I'm not worthy enough of just speaking my truth. I'm not worthy enough of honoring how my body feels right now. I'm not worthy enough of just taking this break. So it all comes down to this like underlying cause, underlying root of worthiness. And I think that when we make those choices to, honor our boundaries, to cancel plans or to remove ourselves from commitments, it's because we're seeing a certain level of value and worthiness in ourself that allows us to be able to do it. And not to get it conflicted with being out of integrity and not being your word. Because there are people who, I have a girlfriend that I love very much, and she cancels plans all the time, and I oftentimes won't mention her name is like to specifically my son. I won't say that she's going to be there because she cancels so frequently, right? And so there's this space of being so out of integrity that you're consistently canceling. And then there's the place where you're honoring where you're at because you're valuable, because you're worthy. And so you are setting boundaries that really support you. You are removing yourself from commitments or people where it doesn't honor you and what's important to you and what's valuable to you at the same time.
I think that some of the through lines here are that
Mhm.
our society values achieving and almost even just being busy as a badge of honor.
Yes.
Like, you are only as valuable as the amount that you are producing,
Mhm.
like the amount of achievements that you have under your belt.
Mhm.
And because of that, there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses in
Mhm.
terms of our energy, or I guess just what we're visibly up to in the
Mhm.
world. You look at someone's LinkedIn profile and it's not just sales at whatever company. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Mine says personal coach, podcast host, and a couple other things. And that's okay because those are all true. And I give my time to all of those things. But, just check in with yourselves if you're listening to this, guys. Like, are you committing to these things because they're truly authentic to you and you actually want to be in contribution and a part of them? Or because you feel some type of outside pressure to be a part of these things?
Mhm.
And the analogy that I've heard a couple of times that I think rings true, and this ties into our self worth, is if you think of ourselves as a cup that's always pouring into other people, if we are not pouring back into ourselves in terms of rest, in terms of self care, sleep, exercise, even just downtime,
Mhm.
eventually we actually run out of the capacity to pour into other people because there's nothing pouring back into ourselves.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what you're getting at. And the lack of integrity is almost like a byproduct, like a symptom of
Yeah, it's like
constantly
a
pouring
hole in
out.
the cup.
Mhm.
It's a hole in the cup. So you're constantly then leaking. There's
Yep.
always a little bit dripping. There's always a little bit being taken from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we just encourage you to check in with yourself. Like, what are you up to and what actually matters to you? Like, what is actually a part of your vision for your life? And Jen, I know you work with a lot of people on this type of thing around their self worth, around their empowerment, around their visions. What do you find supports people in getting reconnected to their vision or just their sense of true north for their lives?
When I was just listening to you talk, the thing that was popping into my head is if you had to describe yourself what would come first? Who you be at the core or all of your accolades? And I
Mm,
think that's a lot of what you're saying, you know, when you talk about like the LinkedIn profile and things like that, is that we do identify with our accolades, with our successes, you know, with our titles. How many letters are after my name, you know? And not to confuse that with like achieving specific goals for specific reasons, right? But there's so much value placed on that or not, right? Like the flip side of that is I'm not worthy because I don't have the degree. I'm not worthy because I don't, you know, have this number in my checking account, or I'm not worthy because I don't have a six-figure plus job. There's that conversation too. I'm worthy because of what I have, and I'm unworthy because of what I don't have. And the big thing that I see that makes a difference with my clients is who you are. You know, if you listed up all the things that describe you, how long would it take you before you said, I'm a loving, empathetic person?
mm.
I am a cheerleader of all of the people around me. You know, I inspire people to take action on their dreams. I make little girls excited in Sunday school and want to dance, you know, to share your story from last week. How long would it take before you spoke those truths about yourself?
Yeah.
And also really checking in with yourself and the things that really matter to you. You know, I was working with a client around her vision the other day, and we were working on it on one call. And then the following week, she said, you know, Jennifer, I read the first two lines of my vision the other day and it brought tears to my eyes.
Yes.
Like, that's when you know you're on the right track. And not because it has to bring tears to your eyes, but does it move you? Does it inspire you? Does it make you want to like jump and go? Is it exciting enough that on the bad days you keep going, you step into action, you keep moving, or you
Mhm.
rest and recover, and then get back the next day or the day after and keep moving. And I think that's the big difference, because all of the things will come and go. You know, I've listened to multiple entrepreneurs talk about, you know, the height of their career and then in several months losing several six figures in their income. And I remember just being flabbergasted by that. But who they are and their vision and what really matters brought them right back to where they were. So it was never about the dollar amount. It was about what they were working towards and who they were supporting and what they were doing with their lives versus what they were achieving.
If I can just share a personal example of that, you know, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. I I am a runner. I love to run. I'm actually going to go run 6 miles in the snow right after we record this. I got into running right at the end of my fifth back surgery. And the goal was I am going to run the New York City Marathon. And in the actual training for races and actually running my first half marathon last year, which for those of you that don't know, a full marathon is 26.2 miles and then a half is 13.1. In running and completing a half, I determined I don't actually want to run a full marathon.
Oh.
And you know, it's not because it wouldn't be awesome to have that medal hanging somewhere in our house and the feelings of accomplishment like doing it, but it actually doesn't feel aligned to my vision to put in the amount of work and effort and energy and to alter my entire lifestyle around this one goal.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm sharing that is because I feel like so many of us get so caught up in what the end result has to look like that we
Mhm.
get totally off track in terms of who we are and what actually feels authentic to what we want to create.
Mhm.
And, as it relates to the running, I can train for a half marathon on my lunch breaks. I can carve out an hour, 90 minutes, on the weekend to go do a run, whatever the case may be based on the running plan. But the amount of time and energy and hours that I would need to put in to run a full marathon well and to actually do it is significant enough that it would take away from our family time. It would take away from a lot of other things, quite frankly. I would have to take naps in the middle of the day, and that naps always mess up my sleep schedule, just the way my body runs. And, because of that, I can confidently say that the vision has changed, and that's
Mhm.
also okay.
Mhm.
And I let down my own ego, my own pride enough to check in with myself and see that, oh, hey, this thing I thought I wanted is not actually the thing. I can still love running. I can still love, the high I get from running and from crossing a finish line and getting a medal, but it doesn't have to look like it does for so many runners in quotes on Instagram.
Sure.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah, and I remember when you were training for that marathon, and I remember how much that it took from you and how much it wasn't just you, right? It was taking from your energy, it was taking from your time, it was taking from your commitments, like not that you weren't fulfilling them, but that you were so maxed out to get it in and be in integrity with all of your commitments. It was taking time obviously away from our family. And when there's a goal like that, that is about, in this case, the medal and being able to say that you ran a marathon, but it's taking a toll on so many areas of your life, I challenge you to ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Because I also know that you chose to run after you had your fifth back surgery as a way to really kind of like take back control over your body, take back the
Yes.
power within your body. And so you did all of that. The end result just looked a little bit different.
Mhm.
And as a result, like you continue to go run half marathons and you continue to go run 5Ks or 10Ks or just around the neighborhood with the dog. And I think that that's the big difference here. Because what I don't want is anybody to hear us saying, like, give up on your dreams, toss in
Mm-mm.
you
No.
forget about the goals, but check in with yourself. Are you choosing this from a space of inspiration and momentum and excitement and, challenging yourself? Or are you doing it because of how it's going to make you look? Because of having that extra medal or having those couple of extra letters behind your name? Is it really about what you want, or is it about how you think people are going to perceive you? Or this level of worthiness that you think you will reach by getting the next degree, the next medal, the next raise, the nicer car.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Jen's saying, y'all, $1 million in the bank, like being a millionaire is something that pretty unilaterally our society just holds as a standard of I've made it or success or
Mhm.
however you want to phrase it. I don't actually think most people want to do the actual work necessary to achieve $1 million in the bank. What they actually are chasing is what they associate $1 million in the bank as providing for them, which
Mhm.
for you is probably peace or, security or a sense of I'm the provider, which I know is a big one for myself and a lot of men out there.
Mhm.
And because of that, just continuing what we're saying, if you are holding yourself high to standards, why you want them matters and how can you get them in a different way that's more aligned to who you are. I don't need to be a billionaire. I do want to have financial security. I can create financial security by being a bit more frugal with my spending and avoiding using credit cards, for
Mhm.
example. I'm curious, Jen, I know we've been kind of harping on the vision and the alignment piece for a while. What about the element of play? Like the element of discovery? Is a vision something that we stumble upon, or is it something we create? And how can we possibly do it from a place that's fun and inspiring versus this heavy, like, ah, I don't know where my vision is. How do I get it?
Mhm, mhm. I think that there are a lot of theories around vision and how you create it. I know that a book that I'm tackling with a friend of mine is, Know Your Why by Simon Sinek. And, he talks about your why is something that you're born with, that it is embedded in you. And, he lists a way of like how you go to bringing it to life, right? And to me, that is a very analytical way to create a vision. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that as somebody who really tends to take action from like energy and heartfelt space, that doesn't 100% resonate with me. When I think about vision, it's what moves me, what excites me, what brings tears to my eyes. You know, I think about I work with the majority women. Most of my clients are women. And it's so important to me to inspire and empower women to go after the lives that they want versus settling for the one that may have unfolded in front of them. And that's also not to
Mhm.
make these lives wrong. Some people, their lives unfold in such a way that it just works and they are happy and they are fulfilled. And then there are those of us that the way our life unfolded, whether it be the choices that we made, the circumstances that were presented to us, our lives unfolded in such a way that we are longing for something different. And that was really me for a long time. And at the time, being a single mom, the idea of being a coach and leaving my corporate job and leaving, the 401k and the benefits and the vacation time and all of that was a pretty ridiculous thought because I had everything I needed and I was miserable. I was the most unhappy I've probably been in my life. And I had a young child watching me, So what I'm showing him is work with what you have and be grateful when you have something because a lot of people have far less than you do. And while gratitude, of course, that doesn't mean I have to settle for where I am. And so making the decision to leave that job and step out on those skinny branches and start my business from the scratch was a huge move for me. And of course I had a lot of support along the way, but I don't ever want to encounter another woman who is in that job that drains her, that she's miserable, that she's unfulfilled, that she's wasting her vacation days just to make her weeks shorter. You know,
Yeah.
I want to see her running after the thing that really excites her and lights her heart on fire. I had a call a couple of weeks ago with a girlfriend and I asked her, I said, if you could do anything right now, what would it be? And she said, I would have she wanted to do like an animal shelter and training and boarding and kind of like a doggy daycare thing. But
Wow.
she feels really committed to this job because of the security that it gives her. Not to mention, but what's possible when we step fully into the thing that we love so much? What's possible from that space? How much security can you create in that space? who knows? Maybe that she's the next big chain, right? Like there's the Pet Palace. That's the one that we have near us, and it's a chain of doggy daycares. But who's to say she's not the next one? And so my vision is, and my calling is, because of what I experienced, and I don't ever want another woman to settle for what she has because she's afraid to go get what she wants. I would say that's like the big one, but also like our youth, because my childhood was so difficult because of because of what I faced, because of the bullying, because I had undiagnosed ADHD. And so I mean, failing school a lot of times. You know, me graduating high school was a big deal. So I'm really passionate about supporting our high schoolers, our middle schoolers, because y'all, it is hard. You know, when I was in high school, when I was in middle school, my bullying ended when I left school and I got to go home and I got to be loved up on by my family and by my friends, and I got to be put back together again. And I was very protected. Nowadays, our kids don't get to escape it. It follows them on social media. It follows them on their cell phones. You know, it follows them on, you know, not, I guess we don't really tweet anymore these days, do we? But it follows them on Facebook and TikTok and Snapchat. And there's no relief from it. And so it matters so much to me that I am giving time and energy to our youth, because I don't ever want a young girl to think in her 40s that she's unworthy because some 14-year-old boy in high school decided that he needed to make her feel that way, because that's not the truth. And so those deeply rooted lies that we take on in our childhood, what if we didn't have to carry them into our 30s or our 40s or our 50s? What if there was a way that we could break free of them, our youth, they could break free of them right now? And so those two things, and I know this was kind of a long-winded answer, but I did that intentionally because I really want you and I want the listeners to hear, when you're choosing your vision, it comes from a space like that. Like, it is deep within me. It is in my heart and my soul. It brings me to tears. I get so excited when I have a client that, you know, tells me, or that texts me. Like, I have a client who moved across the country and she had to get a California driver's license, and it was a real challenge for her. And I loved that Friday at 8 o'clock at night, I was getting a text message that she got her California driver's license, because that meant something to her, because it meant I did it. I moved across the country. I did what I said I wanted to do, and I'm here and I'm a resident now. I love that I get to have those. That's just one example, but I get to hear those celebrations. And it's so fulfilling and heartwarming for me. So I'm like, sure, I'll be a little selfish with it. I love it. I love that these people are like coming to me, telling me about all of their celebrations and achievements and all the goals they've reached, because I took my struggles, I took my pains, and I took the things that really hurt me and pulled away from who I really am, and I put it into purpose, and I put it into passion, and I put it into vision and meaning and drive. And so it's so in my body that it pulls me through the rough times. You know, it pulled me through the time I got fired by a client. You know, it pulled me through the custody case I went through with my son. You know, it pulled me through the dips in my coaching business when I thought I was just going to have to throw in the towel and go get, you know, a quote unquote real job. And so I think that's where vision comes from. Like, it pulls you through the hard times and it inspires you to keep going because you're so clear on how much it matters. Because without you, without your vision, without your commitment, without your, service, who would not be impacted, whose life would not change. And that's why it matters so much to me.
That was so good. And for those of y'all listening, could you hear the energy and the enthusiasm in Jen's voice? And I don't know about y'all, but I could actually feel a seismic shift in the energy in this conversation because in that response, Jen got really connected to her own vision for what she's up to. And
Mhm.
so, y'all, there's no faking it. Actually, once you find it and once you're connected to it, there's no faking it. Like Jen gets out of bed every day and this is what she's excited about doing, and you
Mhm.
can hear it in her voice. And for me, it's podcasting and putting people on and being a connector and a, I like to call it a king and queen maker, supporting other people and becoming the kings and queens of their own lives.
Mhm.
Like, this is what it's all about. The only thing I wanted to touch on is clearly you came upon your vision, you developed it, you found it, maybe either way, you had a couple of signs along the way. This is actually something we were talking about earlier, but you had some signs, but eventually you actually had to take action to get
Mhm.
where you are now. What was the turning point for you when it stopped just being like a little voice or a little bit of knowing or maybe an aha and you actually flipped the switch? Like, when was that moment for you, and how can other people recognize it for themselves?
That's such a great question. You know, it just was that small voice, but it also was in such a way that it was like a light switch went on.
Mhm.
It was being in relation to the response of my body, the response of the energy. Um, I think it was when the commitment to my vision yielded the results. Because I spent several years with my commitment to the vision and I wasn't having the results that I wanted. And so staying in that space, trusting that that calling, that vision that was stirring in my heart and growing and growing and growing, it was what allowed me to stay committed in such a way that I saw the results that I wanted. And I'll also add, and I know this isn't exactly what you were asking, but what was also really important and directly contributed to all of this is the support system that I had. And I'm going to say this because I know there's a lot of lonely people out there. And if you don't have a support system, you go find it. You get uncomfortable and you go find it, because making new friends is much like dating, in my opinion. It's a little bit
Facts.
uncomfortable to reach out to somebody and just say, hey, I want to be your friend. Can we go get coffee sometime? It's a little awkward, you know?
Yeah.
And I would say like a couple of my close girlfriends right now are all because I chose to like invest in some friendships with a couple of other soccer moms. I chose to just be uncomfortable and like go hit on my new friends, to like make the move and really like bring in a support system for myself. And also, in some cases, hiring the support system for myself. Like
Mhm.
I've hired coaches and yes, of course I'm paying them, but I also know that some of these coaches that I've had it in my life have poured into me at the times that I'm not paying them because they care so deeply, because they're so vision driven. And I think that that's a huge, I think that the support and accountability and having cheerleaders in your life are, it's something you really, really need, especially when you're stepping out and onto those skinny branches of your vision. It's something that you really need when your commitment is lacking, is wavering, because you're still not seeing the results that you want. And those people, I almost see like a boxing ring. It's those people in your corner. And it may just be one or two. And you know what? If it's just one or two, and those are one or two really solid people in your life, then high five. And if it's more than that, that's even amazing. But really having people in your corner that are going to help pick you up when you fall, that are going to wipe your tears when you're crying out of frustration or discouragement. They're the people that are going to celebrate every single win. They're the people that, I just had this the other day. I was really upset. I was on a Zoom call with a group of other female business owners, and I got very emotional. And my girlfriend that lives a couple blocks away was on with me, and she walked down here to sit with me on this call and just to give me a hug. It's like, you have to have those people in your corner so that when you're struggling, so that when you're waiting for that that thing to switch, that light to flip on, you're waiting for it all to click. They're the people that are ensuring that you get there, because it's really hard to do by yourself. It's not to say that you can't, but you also don't have to, nor should you.
Yeah.
And so I hope that answers your question, because I think just for me, it was just this deep knowing that I was going to take my pain and turn it into purpose.
Yeah. Oh, so good. We could obviously keep this conversation going, but we're going to have to wind down. How can people get in touch with you who want to know more about you, your story, your coaching, and possibly working with you moving forward?
I would say the best way to get a hold of me is email. We can also put my website in the comments. And yeah, I would actually love to hear if there's anything in this conversation that inspired them to take action on that vision, or to shift the vision, or perhaps even challenge them to choose a vision for the very first time. I would love to hear from that. And so we'll go ahead and put my email and my website. And I think maybe also, like, I would love to gift the listeners a free call, like, no strings attached, no pitch. I would love to gift your listeners with a free 1 hour call. And so I'll use that I'll put that calendar link in there too, so you can click on that and schedule a call.
Y'all take advantage of that opportunity. I mean, Jen is a wonderful coach. And no, I'm not just saying that because we're married. She is, in fact, a phenomenal coach. And any of her clients would let you know that firsthand. And I get a lot of coaching each and every day from her. And you know what? She helps me keep my head on straight. But before we sign out officially, Jen, what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
Oh, shoot. I even know that you do this. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared with my answer. I'm acknowledging myself for staying committed when it was tough.
Mhm.
For staying committed when, I didn't know how we were going to put Christmas under the tree, or I didn't know where the money was going to come from to, put our kid in club soccer. And I'm acknowledging myself for just knowing that it was all going to work out because I was doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And my sister always says this, the universe is my sugar daddy. But what I love to say is like, choose your higher power, right? If it's God, if it is the universe, if it is mother nature. But it's like our higher power is always conspiring for us. And so when we lean fully into that calling, we can trust that we're going to be provided for. And so I acknowledge myself for just trusting that process.
Amen to that. Folks, we thank you for being here this week. Again, we will be back next week with another inspiring guest or message. Please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you are finding your podcast these days. We are mostly active on YouTube and Spotify. However, we are now on every platform podcasts are available. So also, hit that little bell so you get the notifications when a new episode is out. Until then, folks, I am Stewart Kraintz. This is your inside track to success. We'll see you next week.